Is that where you're going to sit? Is that where you're going to sit for the duration? Hi kids, welcome back to another pizza party. I'm Mrs. Pizza, this is Sweeney, and Cheese is down here, trying to steal my pumpkin pillow. It is officially my favorite time of year, probably your favorite time of year. I hazard a guess that it is most people's favorite time of the year. I got on my themes. That doesn't even make any sense. I am themed. There we go. We are here today because I am starting a reading vlog because it is time. The time is upon us. We have entered the time. And that time is the time that I'm going to read this behemoth of a book, It by Stephen King. We get a good book slap. Oop. Nope. This book is giant. Look at the size of this monster. So I have decided, in the spirit of, hey, girl, ma'am, lady, sir, friend, do you even read? Have you ever read? What even is the read? Books that I should have read by now and I haven't, and so I hold myself accountable by picking them up and reading them. We are going to do this thick friend. If you don't know what It by Stephen King is about, I commend you on your ability to completely live off grid. You just on the side of a mountain, milking a goat, turning it into butter. Don't know why that's where my brain went. But everybody knows that It is Stephen King at the height of his cocaine-fueled nonsense, writing about an evil clown in a small town in Maine, this curse that revisits every so many years, and these people that vanquish the clown as children have to return to vanquish the clown as adults. There are several adaptations. I'm pretty sure I've seen the miniseries and the newest adaptation. I think, is that it? If there's more, that's fun. I am going to be picking this up and reading it, and I have already, you can probably see, decided when I'm going to update you, because I feel like if I don't have some sort of rhyme or reason to when I stop and tell you what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, how I'm doing, it could be chaos. I could make it halfway through this behemoth before I even check in. I could check in at the 10-page mark and then the 5 millionth page mark. I need structure. So I've given it to myself. So I'm going to check in every time I hit one of these little tabby tab babies right here and let you know how I'm feeling about It by Stephen King. That being said, this is going to be a little bit spoilery. I'm not going to be like going deep into the spoilery bits. That is not what I'm about, because there is only going to be one behemoth of a book, and it would be really stupid for me to go, hey, I'm reading It, and then check in at the end and be like, so I read It. And it happened. That makes zero sense. So this is going to be a little bit spoilery. If you don't want to stick around for spoilery, that's fine. I love you anyways. Thank you for being a friend. But I am going to discuss things that are happening in the book because I'm probably going to need to get them off my chest, because I have found that with every Stephen King book I pick up, you just want to talk about it. Like, you just want to sit down with someone else who's reading it and be like, oh my God, can you believe we're going to work on our muscles. We are going to pick up It and we are going to read It. And I'm going to check in once I get to my first little tabby baby. Wish me luck. I am actually quite looking forward to this. I'm glad I waited till spooky season. So I'm ready to have a good time. You know, here we come. Here we go. What's up? Look at us.
Look at us. Hey, look at us.
Look at us.
Look at us. I'm a little unhinged today. See me. Am I here? Hello. Things are moving right along. As previously discussed, knew that I would really fly through portions of this book. I also got the book on audiobook from the library as well, so I'm doing a little bit of tandem, but really when I'm out walking the dogs, cleaning the house, doing things that I would be listening to an audiobook, I'm listening to It. When I'm sitting down, reading something, holding it in my lap, I'm also reading It. So I am enjoying my experience so far. So we have reached our first check-in, which is at page 221, chapter 5. The opening of this book, we are getting into it. It is happening really quickly. So we are taking place in two separate timelines. We are taking place in the 1950s and the 1980s, following the same set of characters that are a group of friends that all met up as children. Well, first of all, we start this book off with a bang. We open the book following Bill and his young brother Georgie as Georgie is playing outside in the rain with a boat that his older brother Bill has made for him. He encounters some sort of clowny type creature living in the sewers, and it does not end well for Georgie. That is the opening of our book. It is truly terrifying, and it gets you into it. We are here. So we have officially met it. We then jump forward in time to the present day of this book, where we have this group of townies who end up committing a hate crime and murdering a young gay man who was just enjoying a night out on the town. He was a fan of this small town that they're in, and then we have the police investigation. There is this clown, this experience, but also there are these people with these underlying evils, this hatred inside of them. It's interesting because in a lot of literature, small town settings are very picturesque. They're just kind of seen as the epitome of perfection, right? Like nothing ever bad happens in a small town. It's so much nicer and everybody knows everybody and everybody helps everybody. But really, small town does not necessarily mean this. Derry is the epitome of the evils of a small town. All of these hatreds that are allowed to fester, all of these just like slurs that these people just use so casually, all their prejudices, how they're compounded in these like small insular communities. Stephen King loves him Maine as a setting, but he also loves him a small town because it is interesting how evil these characters in a small town can be, how casual they can be about their just malicious attitudes and thoughts and prejudices. Anyways, we then are introduced to all of our players in the game. We have our friends from the friend group. The first friend that I think we spend time with is Stan, but you know from the opening of his chapter that he is not going to survive. That's not something I should laugh about. I laugh at things that make me uncomfortable. So there you go. There's a personality trait. Stan's not going to make it. But then you are introduced to all of our other characters. You get Richie Tozier, who is our kind of class clown character. You get Eddie, who is our hypochondriac character. You get Bev, who is a successful fashion design character, but she's in a very toxic and abusive relationship with her husband. And then you get Bill, who was previously known as Stuttering Bill. He had a stutter when he was younger, but as an adult is completely disappeared. And he is the older brother of Georgie, our young boy character who dies in the opening of this book. Editing Mrs. Pizza here to let you know that somehow I completely forgot about Ben. Ben is our fat kid who has a glow up and turns into super skinny hot guy and also has a crush on Bev. He writes her a haiku in the beginning of the book, and even though Bev knows it's him, she still decides to get a crush on Bill because I have no idea why, because Ben is adorable and we all love Ben. So we meet all of our adult characters in the points of life they are in when they get a phone call from the final friend in the friend group who never left Derry, Mike. Oh, this lighting is interesting. All of the characters are living out their adult lives, doing various jobs, kind of having no real recollection of anything from their childhood. They're so distant from it. It's something that they haven't thought about, doesn't cross their mind in many, many years. When they get a call from their friend Mike, the one friend that never left Derry, and he's like, hey, remember that promise you made as a child? Well, it's come due. Come on back to Derry, you promised. And so you're basically following the aftermath or the occurrence of each character getting this call from Mike Hanlon. Some of them you're experiencing the beginning of their story kind of right after they get the call, some right before and during they get the call, but the catalyst for all of these people is this phone call that says, hey, we made a promise. Come on back to Derry. It's happening again. And so it's interesting following all of them, and they've been successful and somewhat lucky in certain parts of their lives, whether it be career or just their ability to kind of know where to place their bets in life. But none of them have had children. They've also had this like ominous cloud that has been over them that they haven't been necessarily able to identify. But yet it's almost like as soon as this call comes and they have to return on their promise, it's like somebody turned all the lights on their past. The past was something that was completely pitch dark, and now just spotlights everywhere, remembering things, remembering bits and pieces of promises, different occurrences that happened to them during their childhood, but also like how that has affected them as adults, even though they weren't aware of it because they couldn't remember what they were doing as kids. So we got all that. We've kind of gotten all of our introductions going, and we get Mike Hanlon gets a whole entire chapter where he talks about how he's been researching how these occurrences happen every 26, 27, 28 odd years. This town is just like this black hole of horrible. And every 27 years, it gets really, really bad for a while. There's lots of disappearances, there's murders, there's these like mass tragic events that have happened. And Mike has been doing a little bit digging and finding out about all of it. So now we have gotten to the point where we are now jumping back in time to everyone's childhood. So we're going to be going into the story of all of these people when they're children, their friendships, I'm sure, starting to develop, the epitome of the summer that everything changed, and they're all going to encounter it for the very first time. So we're getting a little bit of backstory in how their relationships with each other worked now. We've gotten the backstory of kind of who they are as people, and now we're going into what happened. So far, I'm enjoying the absolute crap out of this. I know it's going to get bonkers. Like, I'm well aware it's going to get bonkers, but I think I'm here for it, you know? I think I'm here for it. And then when I finish this, I can just like marathon all of the versions of it I want to watch just in time for the spooky season. Right, Cheese? We're going to do an update. Is the lighting atrocious? I can only hope. I can only hope it's horrible. We are going to do this update in the manner of a Charlie Day red string wall. Just completely off our rocker, loose cannon. This is mainly for me because I'm trying to keep track of what's going on because I feel like we are planting seeds, very teeny tiny little seeds, and I am completely unaware of their existence. So I'm trying to stay on the ball. Hold on, let me get my notes. I wrote this on actual paper because I'm ancient. Okay, so far we have been introduced to all of our friends that are going to be our children/adults, our found family, our group of losers, the Losers Club. I'm going to use the photos from the most recent iteration of this movie/adaptation situation because that's how I associate them in my brain. You can use whatever you want. You can fan cast this if you want to. You want Adam Driver to be Bill? Good for you. Sounds great. Michael B. Jordan to be Mike? I can't think of, my brain is literally hemorrhaging right now trying to come up with any sort of celebrity names. Anyways, let's talk about our kids/adults. First up on the docket, we have Bill. Bill is introduced to our story in the super duper absolute beginning. And Bill, I almost want to say, would be like our main point of view / Stephen King stand-in, but I don't think that's true. I think that if anything, there are several characters that are pieces of Stephen King. Bill is also the character we spend the most time with in the beginning because his younger brother, Georgie, is by a clown, pulled into the sewer grate, and his arm is just ripped the hell off. Just bye-bye arm. Let's back up. Let's take a minute. So each and every individual person/child in the beginning, when they are encountering it for the first time, it comes in a different form, and you are only given like a little bit of like a little hint that this is the it that they're dealing with. That being that there is usually some part of the it that they are experiencing that has like big orange fluffy buttons or some kind of like silver costume on. So there you go. There's your little ties it together because the it can be anything. It is an it. So the first time that Bill experiences anything having to do with it, he's actually looking at a picture of his brother Georgie in this photo album. Georgie's picture looks at him and kind of gives him a wink, and then the photo album itself starts like bleeding onto the floor. So Bill has a very spooky ooky experience with a picture of his brother. Bill experiences this in his house. Next up, we have Eddie. With Eddie, he sees a very sick, what we will assume is a person experiencing homelessness, crawling out from underneath a house on Nebolt Street, which this house, obviously, there are multiple occurrences of it showing up at this house on Nebolt Street. Some tragedy at some point has happened here, has to have, because the it activity is just off the charts. But when Eddie experiences it, it's this very extremely ill, like dirty man that is propositioning him for sex acts. This person's nose is missing. They're just like sick and sexual, and it's very creepy, scary. Very scary for Eddie. Eddie runs away. Neibolt Street, another location we need to remember. Put it on the board. So then we have Richie, who doesn't think he has had any sort of experience with it until he experiences it with Bill back at Bill's house after everybody is recounting some stories. So we'll get back to Richie. Next up, we have Mike, who, let's be honest, Mike should be the main character of this story. Mike is the main character of the story. Mike is the only person who's never left Derry. Mike has constantly been doing research into this. Mike sees the sign. Mike is the one they left behind in the lighthouse to turn on the lights when everybody needed to come back. Mike ends up going to the site where the ironworks explosion was, which is another site of tragedy within the town of Derry. Mike goes there and he encounters a giant ass bird, which, honest to goodness, they do an okay job of making this somewhat scary, but like a bird, like a giant ass bird, just a giant ass bird. Okay, Mike. If you say so. Next up, we have Ben. Ben, who is our precious little Ben, who's in the just precious, and he's Ben. Ben is actually the first one to encounter it, but we don't find this out until we are flashing back to his encounter, because Ben actually saw it last winter when he was near the Barrens, another site that it tends to hang out, when he saw a clown hanging out with these balloons that were like floating when they shouldn't have been. Frozen balloons and a clown. Ben is the only one to see it as an outright clown other than Georgie at the point that we are in the story. Also, sidebar, asterisk, we just call it It. We haven't named the baby yet as far as the story goes. Next up, we have Bev. Bev's experience is the last one to occur, but is not the last one that we're told about because they're not necessarily given to you in chronological order. Bev is the only girl in the group. Bev has a horrible home life. So of course, Bev's encounter with it happens in her home. She hears voices in the drain, and then all of a sudden the entire room just gets blood vomited out of the bathroom drain. Just blood everywhere on every single inch, and the adults can't see it. Only the kids can see the blood. And last but not least, although he is reluctant to share his story, we have Stan. Stan was at Memorial Park, which is actually the site where the Black Spot, which is another tragic event that happened in Derry, burned down. They put Memorial Park on this land. Stan is there bird watching. What is it called when you're bird watching? There's a name for it. But he's out there, he's trying to see a specific bird. When he hears a noise, a door opens, he investigates. Stan sees what we are going to refer to as the dead ones, because that's how they refer to themselves. All these waterlogged, gross, decaying people that are dead people from the town. And they're coming for Stan. Also, the music is that you would hear at the circus. So we have another reference back to Clown Town. We have all had our first encounter with it. We also have all made it back to Derry as adults. So now, as children in the timeline, we have all formed our little clique. We have all had a shared experience of something traumatic and horrible happening. And we have also, as adults, made it back to Derry. So we are all going to found family it up, hook it up, get together. Sidebar for me, because I am trying to pay attention to everything, because I just multiverse Stephen King. Everything's connected. Everything's making my brain hurt, and everything's connected. Turtles. Why are we talking about turtles? Why do we keep seeing turtles? I saw a turtle on my walk. It's just what with turtles? Another thing that they talk about a lot is this kind of pull that a lot of these characters have, making them do things or making them not do things. It's also this pull of them all like coming together, forming a group. It's kind of like a lot of things are preordained, or a lot of things are out of their control, but we don't know whose control they're in. Is it destiny? Is it it? What is happening? What is going on? I have just reached the point where Mike's father relays the story of the Black Spot, which is horrific and awful, but also, again, Mike, I'm sorry. I'm sure everybody can argue for each individual one of these kids being the main character, but Mike's got the most going on at this point. Mike's the smartest. But is it because Mike never lost his memories? Is that what's going on? Is that why Mike is the smartest? Because Mike knows what's going on and everybody else lost all of their memories from childhood and now I'm assuming are going to have to get them back now that they're back in Derry? I don't know. That's where we are. Red strings. I will continue reading. I will check back in with you at some point. I have a feeling, because I have a feeling this is going to go insane. Like right now we've had spooky stuff, but it's very formulaic where it's like each child, this is them getting to Derry and then we flash back to their story about when they encountered it. And this is them getting to Derry and they flash back to their, I'm on a plane and I'm on a train, all of those things. So Wish me luck is really what it comes down to. Give me just a minute, just a mere momentcito. All right, we're here. I've actually blown past the next point that I wanted to talk to you guys, but I was into it and things were happening. So let's talk about it. All of the losers are together. Mike has now joined all of his friends in their group of 7. I have some thoughts. I am like past the halfway point, but I have obviously not reached the end. But I have seen the movies and I have a question. Just a question I'm going to throw out there. I am not like a professional writer. I do not write novels. I am not an author. Why is Mike not the main character of the story? Why is Bill the leader? Because he's the tallest? Like, I don't understand at all why Mike is not the leader, the I can't even think of a word. Why is Mike not in charge? Because not only in the story is Mike set up to be the one to be the leader as an adult, because he's been the one that has stayed in Derry this entire time. He's done all this research. He's become obsessed with finding out what it is and how it got here and how to stop it and keeping track of all of his friends for all these years. I feel like I'm talking really fast. Let's take a breath. I don't understand why Bill is the leader. I understand that Bill has the experience of losing Georgie to it, and that is kind of the catalyst for this group all getting together and taking it on. But Mike seems like the better choice in a book, in life. In reality, if this was real, thank God it's not real, to be the leader. Bill can still exist. Bill can have another job within the group, but I don't understand why Mike isn't the leader. Also, I have said this when reading previous books of Stephen King's. I think Stephen King does a really good job with writing really small children, and I think he does a really good job with writing villains, and I think he does a really good job of writing teenage boys. Not so good at teenage girls. Not so much. Bev her inner monologue doesn't really sound, I'm going to say realistic. I don't think that's the correct word either. If she was a teenage girl living in the time she was living in the point of her life where she's starting to go through puberty, in this household where she is the threat of like her father becoming abusive. Right now he's physically abusive. There's been little like seeds left that there might be some sort of SA happening in the future. Bev as a character is being done wrong in this. I think both as an adult and as a child, she has a very male gazy inner monologue. Like the way she's thinking doesn't necessarily make sense. She's an imaginary character. Imaginary characters are capable of all sorts of things. I will move on. I am still going to stand on my soapbox and scream that Mike Hanlon should be the main leader and character of this book. We're moving on. The thing that I find the most interesting about this is that there is this place, Derry, Maine, where there is some sort of entity, creature, thing, that has taken up residence here, and the kids have gone through the smoke hole scene where they have Richie and Mike, again, Mike should be the leader, have a vision that is brought on by them doing some sort of like ceremony. There's a lot of talk of ceremonies in this as well, but not necessarily, even though they do a little bit of research into ceremony, it's more of the intention of the ceremony that seems to be important, which I like, that it's not necessarily you have to follow these ceremonies to the T. It's more of the intention of the ceremony. They've had the smoke hole scene where they've seen the vision of it coming to Derry, and it sounds like it has been in Derry since the very beginning, and it seems to influence everyone in Derry. If you are a good person, a genuinely good human, you are either one, when the bad stuff starts happening, you leave Derry. There is a mass exodus every single time that the bad kind of kicks up in Derry. Or 2, you just kind of have this like fog that kind of, you're very apathetic. Like you just don't, it's not even like a conscious choice to turn away from things, but there's this lack of awareness about what's going on. If you have any sort of evil inside of you, any sort of bad, any sort of prejudices, any sort of malicious things inside of your personality, it amplifies it. So if you are the type of person that has any sort of inclinations to being a bully or beating someone up or hurting small animals or robbing or cheating, anything of that, it just becomes bigger. It feeds it. And so someone that might not necessarily have become a full-blown psychopath inside of the limits of Derry, the soil is perfection for these people to become horrible. And there are many, many horrible people in Derry. I find it interesting that the whole time we are focusing on Henry, Henry Bowers, and how he is like our main bully, our main antagonist aside from it. He is our person that is kind of the one that is after the Losers Club, and he has obviously been influenced, and it is making him stronger and crazier and more aggressive. But Patrick Hofstetter? That is the truth. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. We really don't he's like a secondary bully, like someone that you're not really spending any time with until you get the chapter where it really focuses on him. And oh my, check your triggers. I have a feeling since this has started to go off the rails that we are just going to continue to go off the rails. But I am just wanting to scream at everyone that I don't understand why Mike isn't the main character. This is definitely just absolutely wild. We have basically reached the point where as adults, we are almost 100% back to our memories of what that summer of our childhood was. In our childhood, the gang is all together and we are making a stand against it sometime in the near future. We also have 3 characters from these adults in their real life that are traveling to Derry. So I'm sure at some point they will be in the mix, but there is this draw that the powers of Derry, the powers of it, seem to have to cause different things to happen. It sounds like all of the adults that stay in Derry for any large period of time end up dying of some horrific cancer and just rotting from the inside out. But also that children are really the only ones that are aware of it. The adults just have like ignorance about what's going on in their town. This teeny tiny town is full of all these horrific, violent people. Derry is a scary place to live. And I'm just expecting this to go absolutely bananas before the next time I check in. I think I'm still having fun. I don't want to stop reading. It's more that it's like compulsively readable. Like you don't want to stop. You have to know what's going to happen. Even as I'm being justice for Mike. Why not Mike? Mike is so much better at everything. I don't understand why Bill is in charge. I don't understand. I don't want it. This is nice. We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you a list of things that made me say, what the fuck, while reading it. I will do these in order of reading them. Number 1, why the hell does Ben put lemon juice in his eye and then snort it? What's the point? What's the point? What's it do? Why? Number 2, peanut butter and onion sandwiches. What the fuck is that abomination? Number 3, Beverly loses all her buttons? All of them? Mr. King, do you know, can I call you Mr. King? Can I call you Steven? Steven. Do you know how buttons work? Why are all her buttons gone? What is happening? If she has this, she says she has a training bra. Where's her training bra? What is happening? Number 4. So just adultery, just like we're just cheating on our wife and that's fine because, childhood? I don't know. What are the feelings I'm supposed to have around this scene? And our final, what the fuck? I skipped the entire scene. The entire gangbang. No. What was that? I knew it was coming and I was still like, I don't understand. What is this? And I don't want to listen to it, so I didn't because I love myself too much. Well, it's just what? There was lots more, but these are the highlights. These are the ones that literally had me do a little pause, do a little like pug head tilt, like, huh? And then just peanut butter and fucking onions. What the hell?
Hiya, Georgie.
All right, so we did a thing. We finished an absolute tome. Look at that. Look at the size of this monster. Let's talk about what happens in the end of this book. So after each adult in our group of losers has gone off on their own little side quests and interacted with it once again in order to get their memories back of what childhood was like, what they did, whatever. We then keep bebopping back and forth between them being children, them being adults, them recounting stories of being children and interacting with it. And I think we interact with it just a few times too many because at this point I'm not even really scared of it. We've gotten away from it too many times, but that's beside the point. So in each timeline, we then decide to enter the boss fight. So we have the children deciding to go after it and the adults once again deciding to go after it. Neither time do we take just a moment, just a mere Second, to prepare ourselves with some sort of reliable light source. That's just not something we do. We just say, hey, now is the time. We don't have time to stop for candles or perhaps a flashlight. Just one between all of us. No, we have to go down there and fight it with a pack of matches, both times. I just feel like maybe for the children this would make sense, but for the adults, you've done this before. You've been down there. You know what the light quality is like. Perhaps, I don't know, prepare, but I digress. Each group goes down there in the child version. Bev just rock'em sock'ems a piece of silver right through the werewolf version of it. And then Bill does a ceremony where he travels to another dimension, realm, something, and fights it with his mind powers. Also, we find out what the turtle is. We also find out what it is and that it is a girl. I don't know what to do with that information. Anyways, after the children wound it, conquer it, they think they have won, but just in case, they enter into a pact where they're all like, hey, if it's not dead, we promise to come back and do it again, which we know, because we're reading the book where they are coming back to do it again, is what happens. Then the underage child orgy happens, which I refuse to talk about, because where was the editor? Did no one edit this book? Why was this included? As the adults going back in, we are, instead of a group of 7, we are now a group of 5 because Stan obviously didn't make it past chapter 3, and Mike has been attacked by Henry Bowers, who had recently escaped a mental hospital and proceeded to have the moon talk to him because that's how it communicates with Henry. And he showed up, did some stabbing. Mike ended up in the hospital. I will not harp on how he should be the main character of this once again, but Mike is in the hospital. So Mike's not even here. Mike did all this work and he's not even here. Honestly, it's an injustice. Justice for Mike. We now just have Bev, Ben, Richie, and Bill and Eddie heading down into the lair of it, which we describe the smells, we describe the dankness, the atmosphere of where it is hanging out is pretty cool and pretty spooky, and I enjoy that. We try once again to have Bill do the ceremony over again that helped them win the first time, and it doesn't work, so Richie's got to step up. Richie does the damn thing. Eddie's arm gets pulled off and Eddie dies. We leave Eddie's dead body down there. I have some problems with this because I feel like if they can take Bill's catatonic wife out of this situation, why could they not get Eddie out of this situation? But I'm sure it's supposed to be symbolic of something. Leaving Eddie down there with all the other bodies. It's fine. Then we, all start realizing very, very quickly that our memories are fading and we are once again losing all memories of the loser clubs, of our friendships, and what happened in Derry. It's over for real this time because Derry basically collapses, just falls in on itself. It sounds like a complete and utter just mess. And it is dead and it is over, except for Bill taking his catatonic wife on a bike ride, which wakes her up for some reason. Are we going to tell her about the fact that we cheated on her? Probably not. Still don't know why that was included. Bev and Ben run off into the sunset together. Did I mention that? So Bev ends up with Ben, even though we had a scene with Bill. If you cannot tell from my snarkiness, I really enjoyed the first portion of this book. I'm going to say first half, maybe even a little bit more than half. Basically everything up until the epic rock fight. That was a lot of fun. Learning the backstory of Derry, super fun times. But then when we kind of got into the chaotic craziness that was the ending, it just didn't hit. Stephen King apparently is very well known for not being fantastic at endings, and this one was a doozy of a weird ending. I don't know how he was supposed to end it. I don't even know if the whole time he knew it was going to be a giant pregnant spider monster. Did he know that, or was that just what he came up with on the fly that day? I'd like to know. This is an old book and has issues that any book written 40 plus, when was this written? 84, 85, 83, 40-ish years ago would have. I think that this book, even if Stephen King probably tried to write it today, would probably be very, very different. My final thoughts are, I had a good time until right here. Just just right here. You can even see like my tab stopped there because I reached the point where I was not enjoying myself as much anymore. But yet his books are so unbelievably readable. I hate to say simplistic, but they're like straightforward. They have nostalgia. They bring up things that you would recognize even if you're not from that time period. They're just compulsively readable. His stories make you want to keep going, and I'm glad I read it. If for no other reason than I can say I read this giant ass book. I am definitely not done with my Stephen King journey. I have been really enjoying picking up his books. Some of them I've obviously enjoyed more than others. I'm not upset that I read this book. I'm just that. I don't even have the words to describe the potential I feel like this had that it didn't necessarily reach. And then there was just some stuff that I will never understand why it was included. And that's fine. I have since gone on a deep dive on the internet trying to see all of the messages and hidden meanings and deeper meanings and just all of the things. I have found quite a few videos that I find very, very interesting, and they make you feel validated, but they also bring up some points that you probably missed. The one that I enjoy the absolute most, if you have 3 hours of your time, I highly, or just an hour, and you can watch it in doses, was by Mert KK. I'll link that in the description. I think they did a fantastic job of breaking down the novel. If you need to read this, go for it. If this is something that you need to do in order to feel accomplished with your reading, I mean, that's a lot of pages. People are going to think you're a real reader, but I really think that you might as well just watch the movies because they improved upon a lot of things. It Chapter 1, the first version of the newer ones, is by far the best. Just watch that one and stop there. But that, kids, is where we're going to end this vlog. I read a giant book, and I'm really proud of myself. If you had fun hanging out with me and the dogs, please subscribe. I hope you're reading good books out there, wherever you are. And I'll see you next time. Happy spooky season, guys.